we move in, kind of getting ready for test number 3, which, by the way, is Tuesday. Maybe you're not aware of that. Yeah, it's Tuesday. Today's Thursday. Gavin, what does that mean tomorrow is?
Friday.
Anything special about Friday?
No.
It's donuts and questions. Right? It's donuts and questions. I'll be here tomorrow, in case you're wondering, with donuts. Okay. And questions. I'll bring them both. The donuts I get are very special. They're gluten-free. They're sugar-free. They're fat-free. So you can just, they're very special donuts. Yeah. But if you taste them, you won't even know that that's the way it is. Just you'll think that you'll swear there's sugar in it. Anyway, please feel free to come by for donuts and questions. All right. So as we factor, in order to factor, the first thing you got to do is take out a common factor. So if there's any problems that have a common factor, that's number one thing. Okay, you're always going to look for a common factor. After you look for a common factor, the next thing you're going to do is count the terms. And does it have 2 terms, 3 terms, or 4 terms? Okay, does it have 2, 3, or 4? Because the number of terms it has will dictate how you go about trying to solve it. Okay, so as we go through this, we'll come back to this slide here to look at it and tell you what we're supposed to be doing. Give me 1 second. All right, we're good. I just needed to make sure the music wasn't playing in the background because I've done that before. And then you just get nice music throughout the whole damn presentation. All right, if it has 4 terms, to do 4 terms, you're going to factor by grouping. All right, you're going to factor by grouping. What that means is you're going to group the first 2 and the next 2. Again, generally you want to make sure they're in descending order, 4, 3, 1, 0. All right, so you're going to take out the x cubed. You're going to get x plus 6. Do we agree? Mm-hmm. You're going to take out the 8. You're going to get x plus 6. Now, there have been, some cases where I make a mistake and these 2 parentheses aren't the same. Okay? If that happens on the test, one of us made a mistake. So if you get x plus 6 for this one and you get x plus 2 for this one of us screwed it up. Now here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you right now that it's guaranteed to be you because I've made mistakes before. All right? I try not to, but I won't swear that it cannot happen. Okay? If that happens, then the answer is probably going to be prime. All right? Because you can't factor it. But it should be that these 2 parentheses are somehow the same. Okay? This one and this one ought to be the same. So when those are the same, you take out the x plus 6. And you get x cubed plus 8. All right? Now, bless you. Any time you get a binomial, and by a binomial I mean there's 2 terms. If the number on the x or the y or the z or whatever the case may be, if this number is not a 1, so let's suppose that this number is a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5, any number other than 1, that needs to be an immediate red flag. That something weird might be going on and there may be more work to do. Because if you get to this point and then you stop, you will get an X about that size. You will not get partial credit. It will just be straight wrong, -5. Thanks for coming out. Drive home safe. All right? You cannot stop there because this is the sum of 2 cubes. Okay? So this continues. Now, when we deal with two terms, if it's a cubed plus b cubed, we say ab, a squared plus ab plus b squared. Okay. All right. Now, if it's not two terms, or if it's not a plus, if it's a minus, that changes this sign to a minus and this sign to a plus. Are we straight? If it's a square, then it's the difference of two squares, and that's a squared minus b squared is a plus b. A minus b. That's if they're squares. Okay. In this case, what we have here is the sum of two cubes. This is a cube, this is a cube. So we get x plus 6 times x plus 2 times this times itself is x squared. This times this is 2x. This times itself is 4. Okay. And that is the final factored form for question number 1.
It doesn't matter if the x plus 6 goes at the front or the end, right? Okay.
Nope, doesn't matter. The question was, does it matter whether the x plus 6 goes at the front or the end? The answer is no, it does not. That would be the commutative property of multiplication. It allows you to switch that x plus 6 in its locations. Okay. Whenever you ask a question, I have to repeat it because the microphone doesn't pick you up. All right. All right. So then we move on to number 2. Now, number 2, I hope works. Was anybody able to factor it? Okay, a couple people did. Gavin, so then it must work. Okay. All right. Whenever Gavin says it, then we just know that that's, I mean, play the video for your mom, and she'll hear your name on the internet, and she'll be proud of you. Hi, Mom. It's Gavin. You've done a good job with him. If it's a trinomial, the first thing you want to look for, is look at that last sign. I mean, before you do anything, look at that last sign. I'm sorry, my handwriting on this machine is not very good, right? Like, people are looking at it, I go like this. First thing. Yeah, last sign. It's very clear. I mean, I actually did a pretty good job on that. All right, look at the last sign. Although I think I misspelled sign. Look at the last thing. So we're going to look at the last sign. If this sign is minus, that means these two signs have to be different. Because this ultimately has got to multiply to give me negative 15. So if that's a negative 15, then one of those things has got to be a positive, one of them's got to be a negative. Right? Now, I don't know whether it's positive and negative or whether it's negative and positive. I'll figure that part out at the end. Does that make sense? So don't get too terribly bogged down into plus, minus, minus, plus. Just put something. And then we'll check it all out and we'll see if it works. So we put a plus and a minus. Now, we've got to get 20x squared. And this is where, if you don't know your multiplication tables, this is when it starts getting really tough for you. Okay? And I'm not making light of it because, I mean, I've dealt with students a lot, and I'm dealing with some high school kids right now, and it's very depressing. All right? Somebody the other day, 8 times 8. I want to say 56, but I don't think that's right. And I was like, well, I'm glad you don't think it's right. you got to know them. What gives me 20? Well, your options are 1 and 20, which hardly ever work. 2 and 10, which is better than 1 and 20. And 4 and 5, which is the best because you want to choose the numbers that are closest together. Does that make sense? Now, when you plug in 4x and 5x, when you plug in 4x and 5x, that gives me 20x squared. Do we agree?
Yes.
Now, what numbers give me 15? 1 and 15. And 3 and 5. I knew what you meant. All right. Now, I'm going to choose the numbers closest together. They tend to work more often than not. Now, I told the last class, and I'll tell you guys this as well. How many of you have a dog? If you have a dog, raise your hand. So a few of you do. How many of you have a dog that will, in essence, beg for food? Gavin, yours does? Yours does for real? Lizette, yours will? My dog is terrible about it, but the only person her ass will beg is me. She won't beg anybody else. But if I'm like every morning, because I make my kids don't eat school lunch. Like, I don't know if y'all ate school lunch. My kids won't eat that shit. My son still got $3 on his account from the 3rd grade. It just keeps transferring over. I'm trying to figure out how do I cash out. Like, can y'all hit me on the cash app because I want my $3 back. She begs for food because she knows that there's a good chance I'll give it to her. Because I do it every morning. Right? Now, does that mean she gets it every morning? No, because some nights I make it ahead of time because I'm like, I kind of get prepared. And so I'll make the lunch ahead of time. And then her ass don't know I'm in there making the lunches. So she ain't there. But in the morning when she gets up, she goes and sits at the kitchen table. Waiting on you, Dad. I know there's some pepperoni coming my way. She loves pepperoni. All right. Will it always work? I mean, for the dog, it doesn't always work. Does it always work? But it works enough to get him to do it, doesn't it? It's the same thing here. Choosing the numbers closest together, it ain't always going to work. Sometimes you get disappointed. But I promise you this, it'll work good enough that it'll keep you coming back. Choose the numbers closest together, but don't ever put common factors side by side. Choose numbers closest together, but never put common factors side by side. So the 5 can't go there. Only the 3 can go there and the 5 can go here. All right. Then check the middle term. You'll notice I'm not checking 4x times 5x to get 20x squared because I know you're going to get 20x squared. That's the whole reason why I put 4 and 5. I'm not checking 5 times negative 3 to get negative 15 because I know you're going to get negative 15. That's the whole point. If you put 7 and a 2 there, that's not very smart. No offense. Some of y'all going like this. Well, then shit, I'll raise my answer. No. But what's not guaranteed is that when you multiply this times this and this times this, that you ultimately get that. That's not guaranteed at all. 5 times 5 is 25x. 4x times negative 3 is negative 12x. When you add those together, what do you get? 13x. Is that right? No, but it's close. When you get the wrong sign but the right number, all you got to do is go back and change these 2 signs. And now that'll make this a negative 25, make this a positive 12, which will then make this a negative 13. And that is correct. Is that okay? All right. Don't panic. Don't panic when you see it. I know a lot of times the numbers get big and people start to panic. Don't panic. Pick the numbers closest together. Don't put common factors side by side. You'll be surprised how quickly you can get through these. Okay. As we move back to x to the fourth minus 625, I remind you that x to the fourth minus 625 is two terms, and it's a binomial, meaning, or it's a difference of two squares. All right, it's a difference of two squares. So that piece, now again, you got to know that 625 is x squared plus 25 times x squared minus 25. Okay. Now, people go like this, well, how do you know that 625 is 25 times 25? I don't know. You just got to know that crap. This piece is going to continue. So you're going to get x squared plus 25 times x plus 5, x minus 5. All right. This piece will not factor. And what I'm going to say to you is, don't force it. Don't force it. All right. I told the other class, I needed my son to screw a screw into a piece for me. And when he came out, I said, hey, were you able to get that thing screwed in? He goes, yeah, I got it. I said, was it the right screw? He's like, well, it was a little tight at first, but it worked. What the hell do you mean it was a little tight? He's like, well, at first it wouldn't go in, but I just kept screwing it, and it eventually went in. 2, we're never going to get that screw out of there. Why do we need to take it out? I don't know. Maybe we want to take it apart one day. It'd be helpful to take the screw out, and it won't come out now. Are you sure? I'm positive. Don't force it. I see people who force this. They're like, oh, it's got to. What do you mean it's got to? Well, I'm going to do it. No, don't force it. It's not x plus 5 times x plus 5 because the middle terms won't cancel. The only ones that will do that are the ones that are minus. That's because the middle terms will cancel. And you can't see that I'm pointing at the screen, but I'm pointing at the plus 5, the minus 5. All right? The plus 5x and the minus 5x, the plus 5x and the minus 5x, those will cancel. These will not cancel with the plus here. Okay? All right.
What was the formula for that?
The formula for this is a squared minus b squared is equal to a minus b, a plus b. Okay. Now, Lizette, she tried to show her love for me by giving me the answer. Good job, girl.
Thanks for the shout out.
Will your mom watch this? She won't? Okay. Love you, Lizette. My heart will go on, though. All right. Because I found someone else. What's your name, baby? Yeah. All right. 3x minus 2, x minus 5. This is, how do you solve that? In order to solve this, what you have to do is, because this is equal to 0. Now, important that you know that it's got to be equal to 0. If it ain't equal to 0, then all bets are off. But when it's equal to 0, you take 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. You take x minus 5 is equal to 0. And you solve those independently. All right? Basically, what we're saying there is this. If two numbers multiply to give you 0, one of them will need to be 0. I don't care which one. But one of them will need to be 0. So if x is 5, five minus 5 is 0. Do we agree? And 0 times whatever that is
0.
0. And so that's how this works. You're figuring out what makes this piece 0. You're figuring out what makes this piece 0. And then once you have that, the multiplication then becomes 0. So x equals 5 and x equals 2/3. If x is 2/3, this piece here is 0. And that's how that works. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. Now, how do we solve this? In order to solve, if we're going to solve an equation that's got x squared in it, we want to factor when it's equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, we want to force it to be equal to 0 and then factor. But some way, somehow, we're going to have to factor. Three x and x. What is 10? 2 and 5. This sign is plus means what? These two signs have to be the same. Again, please do not assume. Please do not assume that it works. You got to check the middle term. This is negative 2x. This is negative 15x. That's negative 17x. That does work. But you must check it. Once you factor it, what do? Once you factor it, what do? Set each piece equal to 0. By the way, that's the same problem we just did. That's a little like Run DMC right there. That's a little tricky. All right. X equals 5 and x equals 2/3. Just rewind it if you want to see it worked out from there. All right. Any questions on that? This portion of the video is brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone.